All right, and good evening, North Texas. I'm Joshua Weisel here in the Weather 225 Storm Studios with an evening look at your forecast. And we have an interesting one ahead. We got more rain and thunderstorm chances not only tonight, but into portions of tomorrow. And it's going to be a mild overnight, as you can see, starting off into the upper 60s, lower 70s area wide. It will be humid tomorrow morning as well. So maybe not the most comfortable morning in terms of those temperatures. We'll get to those rain chances here in just a second. Tomorrow morning in the immediate DFW area, right around the upper 60s to lower 70s to start off with. Tomorrow afternoon, a little bit similar than it was to what it was today. We're talking right around the lower 80s, a little bit cooler in some spots. And then the further south and east you go, still in the lower to maybe some mid 80s area wide. So with that being said, it's going to be similar, but maybe a cooler afternoon by 1 or 2 degrees. So hyperlocal view in the immediate DFW area, you can see that we've got those slightly cooler temperatures, only 1 or 2 degrees. Now, here's the rain chances. This is going to be the primary story for the activity that we have tonight into tomorrow. As you can see, for tonight into tomorrow morning, there are going to be some higher rain chances. We're starting to get into the expected range with this algorithm. High-end risk for some precipitation, as you can see. So moral of the story is we got some rain chances on the way. The tricky thing with these maps are you see this, you think, okay, now that we're getting to the expected very high or high range, that guarantees rain, right? Well, not necessarily. This just means that there is a pretty high risk for rain. And I will say, the expected category, it actually does a pretty good job with that. So if you're in the high end, probabilities for the rain tonight into the overnight, there's a pretty good chance that you're going to see some rain, but not everyone's going to see rain overnight tonight across the area. So we'll show you that here with the future scan radar. Here's a look zooming into the DFW area, very high to even expected with the rain probabilities overnight. Now, here's the other thing. So not everyone will probably see at least heavy rain, but most of the area will see some type of rain, but it's going to be tricky. Not everyone will see rainfall. Maybe a couple areas don't see as much, but there is a pretty good rain probability going forward into tonight and tomorrow, especially along and south of I-20, even just along and slightly to the north of I-20 as well. And this is what we were talking about earlier with the forecast today. There is the potential tonight and tomorrow once again that with some of the heavier activity, there could be some localized rainfall amounts of maybe as high as 4 inches of rain. Now, that's not going to be a guarantee, but as you can see, zooming into the metro area, we got a probability for not only rain, but there could be some heavy rainfall. Some of those totals anywhere between 1 to 3 inches of rain. So we'll have to keep an eye on that. So you're starting to see we're into the brighter to darker blues, and then we start getting into the purples after that. And keep in mind, there were a couple of days that we had rain that didn't really move all that much, and we had a lot of rain in a short amount of time, and that led to more than what was forecasted in terms of totals with those maps. So let's keep an eye on that. We will have the potential for some heavy rainfall tonight. Now, here's a look at the severe weather probabilities. Still a low-end potential, mostly along into the west of I-20 and to the west of I-35. And excuse me, there's a gnat flying around my head right now, so I'm going to try and shoo that away. But the rain probabilities are there. It's going to be the kind of severe weather risk that we've seen the last couple of days. We're not expecting long-lived severe weather. We're not talking, supercells that can go for, a long period of time, hundreds of miles, nothing like that. Just a couple of pop-up thunderstorms for the remainder of today. And then as we head into tonight, as a little complex makes its way into the metroplex, some of those could be strong to severe, but we're not talking high-end severe weather. We're not talking widespread organized severe weather. Zooming into the metro, that risk, it's very, very tiny with this map. It clips parts of Tarrant County, but keep in mind, even outside of the highlighted area, could be a couple stronger storms. So not expecting widespread severe weather. Here's a look at future scan radar, and here's a look. This is around 10:45. I think we're going to have activity before midnight. That activity is going to continue to push off to the north and east, and then following that, here's around 3 in the morning, scattered showers and thunderstorms overnight tonight as well throughout the metroplex. Some of these are going to be heavy rain producers. Keep in mind, if your area has experienced some flash flooding over the last couple of days, or it's flood prone, meaning it's low lying, poor drainage, stuff like that, there is probably going to be a localized flooding potential overnight into the early morning commute tomorrow. And then as we start heading throughout the afternoon, you saw there was a couple pop-ups. I can't rule out some of those pop-up showers and storms. And then once we make our way into the evening, a little bit calmer activity. mostly clear by the time we get to midnight per future scan radar. So the moral of the story is tonight, we're going to have some scattered showers and thunderstorms, widespread activity before midnight. I think it's going to start to move into the area closer to, let's say, 9 or 10 o'clock. And then that continues with that widespread activity through at least 2 in the morning. 3 in the morning, we got some scattered showers, even some thunderstorms. Now, that may not be quick moving. That may lead to some localized flooding, especially in the metro, if it does develop like Future Scan showed, popping up over the metro. Now, something interesting. We've been talking about the extended pattern. Decided to go ahead and show you these maps here for this evening show. We'll also show you it tomorrow morning as well. But notice there's something weird. We are headed into a ridging pattern, but oddly, we're also going to be seeing maybe below average temperatures at the same time. And the reason that's weird is typically when you get these ridges, you start to see the media in the news talk about the death ridge or the heat dome. That's when you start to see the pattern, and I'll show you what it looks like here in just a second. But it's typically when you see these omega patterns and blocking patterns, if you will, that they tend to take the jet stream with it back up to the north. And when it does so, it keeps everything dry. It also keeps everything hot because we don't have an active jet stream over our area. So you can see the blocking pattern is going to bring above average temperatures. It's just for areas way to the north, way to the west. For our neck of the woods, even into the south and east, we're oddly getting below average temperatures. Now, when you see these blues, this does not mean, 50 degrees for your afternoon highs. This doesn't mean freezing temperatures. This doesn't mean winter. This just means that, if your average high for this time of year is around 85, it's going to be below that. If it's, depending on where you're watching from across the country, if your average high is 90 for this time of year, it's going to be below that. So whatever your average is for that time of year, which is the 80s in parts of North Texas, that means it's going to be below that. So with that being said, we're going to be below those average temperatures for this time of year going forward. Some could be well below average, which is a little bit odd to say the least for this time of year, but this year has been odd in general in terms of the weather. Now, going forward, there's also going to be still probability for above average precipitation, and in areas further to the north and to the east, below average precipitation is forecasted. This is both for the days 6 to 10 outlook from the Climate Prediction Center. Now, here's a look at what I'm talking about with the Death Ridge, and you'll see it. This is the winds aloft, and notice how it kind of just bows up to the north into Canada, and then there's really nothing going on in the central United States. That's that ridging pattern or that blocking pattern. It looks to be an omega block going forward into early June. And then it kind of just keeps going. There may be a little bit of a break in it by the time we get to maybe June 4th. But then notice it doesn't last super long. And we've been talking about this. I think the first week of June, that's when we're going to start to see this blocking pattern stick around. And that's when we're going to see things dry out. We're not going to see as much activity. It's going to be quiet for a while, at least for, maybe a week or so. By the time we get to June 5th, per this model, notice we're starting to see that pattern re-dipping further to the south and to the west. And that could mean that it may only last for about a week or so, maybe an active pattern. It's very tricky the further out you get. So with that being said, it's a little bit longer of a forecast. I wanted to include you in some of that information because I've talked about it, but I also wanted to show you what we're talking about in terms of that information. So going forward, we got some rain chances. And then, unfortunately, I had to bump up some rain chances for Saturday, Sunday, once again, even parts of Monday. So we're not quite clear of the rain just yet. Maybe a little bit of a break for parts of Saturday and also for Friday. And then no rain chances for Tuesday. But keep in mind, these extended outlooks, they tend to go kind of back and forth the further out you get. You may see forecasts that go well in excess of 7 days. I'm keeping our forecast to 7 days because the models over the last couple of years, they really have, it feels like they're not as great as they were over the last several years, where there's a lot more uncertainty the further out you get. And, in all honesty, you start to see, forecasts, the models, we have several. We don't just look at one and run with the other. Days 1 through 3 is probably about the most accurate you're going to get with a lot of the models in terms of that information. But even that is not perfect. The further out you get, we start looking for trends, and that is, all the models are showing this in similarity, so on and so forth. If it's sticking, if it continues over the days leading up to that, that's when you start to get that forecast information. But notice it has flip-flopped over the last couple of days the further out you get. So with that being said, a lot of uncertainty the further out you get with these forecasts. So that's why I want you to check in with these forecast updates throughout the week. So make sure you tune in for those daily shows. We'll have all the information on this. If you want to support us, share these videos, like, comment, subscribe, whatever platform you're on. If you like these updates, follow us on Facebook, follow us on, Instagram. We're not as active on Instagram because that algorithm, in all honesty, is terrible. I could post all these updates, but when we started doing that a couple of years ago, it would end up that someone would see a week old forecast and get confused. So we're on all social media platforms, but the best one to follow us on is on Facebook because that's when you can get all of our updates. Then we post them every day. And so stick around, follow us for those updates, and then share us with your friends. Get our outreach out there. Helps us to, get all the weather information out to as many people as possible. Have a good one. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you like our media and forecast, be sure to support us today on Patreon. You can advertise with us this storm season and throughout the year. Contact us today for availability and pricing. Weather 225 since 2015.